very few things in life are so individual as nutritional advice. And so we can't just expect that any kind of meal plan or any kind of diet that worked for your neighbor is going to work just as well for you. And therefore, with nutrition coaching, we aim to really find out what works best for you, what kind of meal frequency, what kind of distributions in terms of macros as well. Of course, there are certain basics, as we already said, in terms of lifestyle, but also in terms of nutrition, that science has proven to be effective for most people.
Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people from around the world, they're saying, okay, we know where Canada is, and British Columbia on the west coast, right? And there's this big city called Vancouver. Well, we are 500 miles north of Vancouver, or 800 kilometers. And a little bit of snow on the ground here, early in the winter still. It is a land with lots of trees, lots of wildlife actually, black bears, grizzly bears, caribou, deer, wolves, you name it, we have it all here, living in harmony. So today we got a very, very special guest. Her name is Lisa Franz, and Lisa is, as a master in science and exercise science, health, promotion, and nutrition, she's the owner of and head coach at a nutrition coaching and life host of a nutrition and life podcast. Lisa, you are in South America, and tell us all about it. What is your background? Maybe start with where are you now, because that's somewhat unique. And then we'll go back to where you started, how you got there, and how do you got to be doing what you're doing today.
Wonderful. So first of all, thank you so much for having me on. It's a true pleasure speaking with you. And yeah, thank you to the internet and to our worldwide connections that we are able to communicate. Because as you say, I am actually in Bolivia. And for those of you that are not super familiar with geography, Bolivia is basically at the heart of South America. So in the southern hemisphere, for us here, it is spring heading into summer. So today is a wonderful day with about 85, 90 degrees. Of course, obviously no snow. Although I am very well familiar with cold winters, as well as I am actually originally from Germany. I left Germany in 2009, though, so it's been a while, good 15 years. I moved to New Zealand initially for 10 years, and for the last 6 years, I have been globetrotting, digital nomading, so to speak. And the wonderful thing is that being location free still allows me to do what I do, which is nutrition coaching. So essentially, to put it very simply, I help people lose body fat, gain muscle, and just in general improve their body composition and their relationship with food and health overall.
Wow. So Germany, New Zealand, Bolivia, South America. What language do you speak? Is it Spanish or Portuguese?
Here we speak Spanish.
Spanish, yeah. Okay. So then, so you speak fluent German, you speak fluent Spanish, obviously, and fluent in English. So,
Yes,
and then all the stuff that you do, if I got this correct, is all virtual on the internet. So your podcast is very, very active, I presume. And then your coaching is global, right all over the global world. And you have the benefit of being able to speak, to have clients in Germany, although a lot of people in Germany speak English as well. But I was born in Holland.
Oh, wonderful. So we're neighbors, yes. Yeah. I will say the Netherlands is one of the few nations where I have never had a client from. Aside from that, I have worked with people from all over the world. The majority of our clients are within the US and Canada, which is wonderful for me because it's still obviously similar time zones as what I'm having here. But I do have clients in the Philippines, in New Zealand, Australia, in the Middle East, quite a big chunk of our clients as well. So around Dubai, that kind of area. And it's not always dependent on phone calls or so. So time differences really doesn't matter that much. We are able to communicate also with just voice messages and email and text nowadays with our clients. And so, yeah, it's truly a wonderful thing that we have the internet because I love learning about different cultures and how that also affects our eating habits because we're often not that aware of like how much of an influence that actually has into why someone prefers over rice over potatoes or why perhaps you and I might have a big love for bread. I don't know about you. You might have a big love for cheese. At least that's the prejudice of what people say about Holland.
I love cheese.
There you
So
go.
although I'm vegan, probably 90-10 vegan, and
Gotcha.
then I just had to tell you that I'm 84, so I had my birthday here about 3 weeks ago, and then at the same time I'm into fitness and health. This is the last book that I wrote is Living Young, Dying Old, a picture of me
Wonderful.
actually. I'm the
Wonderful.
oldest.
You look strong.
Yes, I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America. So
Well, congrats. What an achievement.
so obviously, and I'm a bit of a late bloomer because I didn't really start any of this until I was after 60. So, and up to that point, I was out of shape and didn't go to the gym. My wife was vegetarian, but I didn't listen all that well to her as I should have. I do now, but then I didn't. And, so the clients the source of clients that you have, a lot of people in Canada and the United States that I know are overweight, are not practicing good diet or exercise or the both. That's one of the reasons that I wrote the book, Living Young, Dying Old, and it's all about the very basics diet, or I usually say, sunshine, vitamin D, sleep, diet or food, health, walking, sleeping is very important. All those very basics, and making sure you're aware what you eat and stay fit. You don't have to be an Olympian or a bodybuilder or whatever you do, but at least get exercise. And then the more exercise you pursue, the better you will like it because people will say, "Hey, Lisa, my God, what did you do? You look good." And so once you get those compliments, then you know you're on the right path. And that's always encouraging for people when initially they start either on diet or exercise. It used to be for me as well that at the end of the year we make these commitments. I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. I'm going to buy a membership to the gym, and then 2 weeks later I can find 100 reasons why I'm too busy to go to the gym. And so all of that is part of North America for sure, and to a certain extent Europe as well. So tell us about, did you get your education in Germany then before you went across the world?
So partially. So I started studying at the European Sports University in Cologne, so in the northwest of Germany, actually very close to Holland.
Yeah.
That is where I did about half of my bachelor's degree before I then obtained a scholarship to finish my bachelor's degree in New Zealand at the Auckland University of Technology, AUT as it's also called. And then my master's degree I obtained in the US at California University of Pennsylvania, where I got my degree in exercise science, health promotion, and nutrition. So all over the globe, really. But I really wanted to finish my education with an English speaking degree, as I already knew I wanted to help people worldwide, and I wanted to practice in English. Mostly, I do have German clients, but mostly in English. And yeah, I was just going to say that if you ever are still looking for a job, everything exactly that you're promoting in the sense of sleep and all the basics, that's exactly where I love starting with my clients as well. Because as you said so beautifully, it often really is already lacking there. People are looking for those fancy hacks. They're looking for the one big supplement that helps them or the specific diet that helps them. But it's often exactly as you're saying, the lack of sunlight or daylight exposure, the lack of sleep, and being overly stressed, not being hydrated enough, where we need to start. And that's the unsexy basics, where if you start with people there, they're like, oh, what big difference is that going to make? Well, over the course of time and over the course of years, it makes a huge difference. So exactly, I mean, I know you wouldn't be where you are right now if you would only have slept 3 hours on average, or let it be 5 hours on average for the majority of your life, or you wouldn't be performing as well as you're doing in terms of your bodybuilding if you would be neglecting the importance of protein, or simply eating enough, or overeating. That's probably that's the two extremes that we're usually dealing with. So in transparency, I don't work with a lot of severely obese people. I work a lot with people that say, I'm already kind of eating healthy. I do like to exercise, but I don't look like it. What am I doing wrong? So they might have those extra 15 kilos and just not be happy, even though they're already being active 3 to 5 times per week. But they might have an overly stressful life. They might just generally also falling for things like emotional eating, because eating is much more than just, I know what's right. Many people know what they're supposed to be eating, but they still don't execute. We all have those things. For me, it might not be food, but it's other things. When I have a savings goal or whatever, and I might know what I should be doing, but I'm not executing. So that's where our emotions often come in, and where we're just sidelined by our habits and all our limiting beliefs. And so I really, really want people to understand that food is much more than just having the quote unquote right diet plan, because most people can follow a good plan, but maybe for a couple of weeks or three. But then they have a stress overload, they have a birthday party that they want to go to, they have Christmas that they're dealing with, and they never learned how to handle those things in moderation, and specifically also with those basics that you mentioned in place. So I think that's a really, really important. And because of that, the majority of people that we work with, really, it's not just a one-off consultation where I tell someone, this is what you should be eating for breakfast, and here's the best afternoon snack. It is nutrition coaching for a reason. So many people might not know the difference between a nutrition coach and a nutritionist. So nutritionist works a lot more clinically with people that have a disease or something specific, for example, diabetes or some Crohn's disease or so. And so you have a consultation with a nutritionist, and they give you a best meal plan. And then most of the time they say, okay, good luck, see you later, bye. And
Yeah,
that's it.
that's
So
it.
nutrition coaching, just like a fitness coach, is a lot more ongoing, and it's supposed to be about addressing nutrition around your life. So everybody has a different lifestyle. Some people function better in the morning, some people function better in the evening. Some people do better with higher carbs, some people do better with lower carbs and higher fat. So it really, I always like to think, very few things in life are so individual as nutritional advice. And so we can't just expect that any kind of meal plan or any kind of diet that worked for your neighbor is going to work just as well for you. And therefore, with nutrition coaching, we aim to really find out what works best for you, what kind of meal frequency, what kind of distributions in terms of macros as well. Of course, there are certain basics, as we already said, in terms of lifestyle, but also in terms of nutrition, that science has proven to be effective for most people. Let's just say consuming enough protein, enough being somewhere around about 1.6 to 2 grams per kg of body weight or something like that, consuming enough fiber, those kind of things tend to be really important for, 90-95% of the population. And you have those few outliers that have specific conditions. But yeah, we have some basics that we want to lean on, but then we need to individualize the approach around you. And I'm sure that for you as well, John, that you have found certain things working for you quite well. And that's probably why you said you're 90% vegan, and 10% of the time you have a little bit of leeway that you're leaving yourself. And that's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful, because the majority of time you're still following what works best for you.
Yeah, and so what you already said, and that is acceptable. And so, and then the other part, that I have a bit of a sweet tooth, especially for licorice, typical for Dutch cheese licorice, and so that's okay too. You don't have to worry about it as long as are careful with it. And then the other ones, which are obvious in my mind, is smoking, drinking, especially excessively, and all those things are basically not good for you, period. And then the other part for your feedback is that, what is the ideal weight for a person does not really apply as a standard, because every individual, as you already said, is different. It doesn't make, if you're 100 kilograms, and your friend is 150, that doesn't mean that you are overweight. Simply, your body style is different, and that's probably what first and foremost, establish the individual or your client as what is his or her body style, and what is the objective, and what is their current diet, what could they change. Sometimes, that people, they think that if you do a diet, it doesn't taste well. That is not the case. That doesn't have to be that way. That if you are sensitive about the diet that you have, then it can be very tasty, and and the style is. I've been doing it for about 15 years, and it works well for me, and I enjoy it. And the same with going to the fitness, is that that once you start doing it, and once you stay active, and it starts showing, then you enjoy it, and that's again very, very important.
Yeah, you mentioned some wonderful points here. So the first one is, you said you give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. 90, occasionally you have your licorice and so on. And that is actually crucial. And one of the things that, in terms of research, they have found as well, that people that are successful long-term dieters, or are successfully maintaining a healthy body weight long-term, they know how to incorporate their favorite foods in moderation from time to time. And unfortunately, we are in a society where all or nothing thinking is so big, ingrained in most of us. And that's a place where I have come from as well. It was always like, oh, it's just normal to gain weight over the holidays, and I'll start back up on January 1st, etc. So you're going all out over the holidays, and then you're over restricting on this horrible, I don't know, whatever detox diet in January, just to then feel deprived. And the next time you see licorice, you can't wait to have the whole entire bag, because you think, oh, I can't have that for the rest of the year. So that's something in terms of mindset shift that I really um, know is difficult to unlearn. But with the right practice over the course of the time, we can in fact adapt a different mindset, where we are internalizing, hey, I actually have the internal power to just stop after 5 pieces or so. That was delicious. I enjoyed that. I don't need to keep going until I feel nauseous or whatever. And so if someone is listening to this and they think, oh, no, that's not me. When I have chocolate in the house, I need to have the entire thing. I want you, the listener, to think, no, actually, you can learn. It's all a matter of practice. Everything that we do is a matter of practice. You can actually teach yourself to be okay after 2, 3 pieces. And part of that is to incorporate that on a more regular basis, because almost saying, if you allow yourself to have that on a daily basis, at some point you're probably even going to get to a point where you're like, oh, it's really not that great, I don't even want it that much anymore. Or just using simple techniques like only purchasing the individual little packages as opposed to the family pack. That's another method where you can just restrain yourself in a healthier way. And the other thing that I wanted to pick up on that you mentioned was, there's no one correct body weight for everybody. And I think especially in the bodybuilding slash muscular world, we know that something like BMI or so is really not that indicative of health, because what we should really be looking at is more the body fat percentage. If we have a body fat percentage that's more in the normal range, that's a much better indicator of overall health than just looking at weight, because two people can be the exact same weight, and if one of those people a person has a body fat percentage of 30%, they're just statistically a lot less healthy than someone who might have 15% but the same exact weight. And so that just shows that you can have the same weight, but if we are too fixated on the scale, it is going to tear us away from what's really important. So if again someone is listening and they're like, oh, I just want to get to XYZ weight because that's where I was at when I was this and that age, I would like to encourage you to shift that towards, okay, how can I gain more muscle? How can I lose body fat? And just kind of distancing yourself a little bit from the scale in that sense. And you're absolutely right. Like even when it comes to fitness as well, there's no one right method for everybody, even just because we have different preferences. And we know when it comes to food and training alike, the fact that someone sticks with something is the most important thing. And you're only going to stick with something if you at least in part enjoy it. Of course, not every workout needs to be the greatest. Not every meal needs to taste the best meal in your life. So there is a degree of, sometimes when you're not motivated, you're still gonna do what's right just because you know it's right. But overall, find the method. If you have 5 training methods to choose from, find the one that you enjoy the most. And same in terms of food. If you have specific meals, don't force yourself to eat chicken, rice, and broccoli if you actually much prefer the potatoes and tofu and spinach, because again, it should be somewhat enjoyable. And you mentioned food doesn't have to taste boring, and I'm totally with you there. I do think that sometimes it takes a while for our taste buds to adapt to something new. So just because something tastes different or maybe a little bit more bland than what you're used to, number one, give it a chance. And number two, realize that restaurants and maybe even your mom or grandma or whatever who's making the most delicious meals, that they're probably using quite a lot of oils, a lot of salt, a lot of sugar. So all these things that are flavor enhancers, and of course the things are going to taste a lot better then. But it doesn't take too long for us to get used to, okay, meals that might have a little bit less oil, a little bit less salt, a little bit less sugar. You can help with other things that season, like herbs, spices, things like low calorie sauces like mustard, sriracha sauce, and create a lot of flavor that way in a much healthier way than adding all this sugar and all this oil, which is just going to add in extra calories.
Yeah, that's for sure. And then the other part about it, Lisa, is that, and that's the point that I like to make, because I know so many people that say, well, I would, but I'm too old now, or I can't do that anymore. Like for me, it took till I had a case of diverticulitis. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a rupture of the colon, and I was then 68 in 2008, and it can be very dangerous because of the toxins go through your system, they're trying to attack your healthier organs, and you have a limited amount of time. So they took 20 centimeters out of my colon, and I came about that close, that, the, so, but then I knew I had to, I was not overly overweight, but I did not do what I should be doing. My wife is already vegetarian, and I didn't listen as well as I should have. But then I knew I had to do something because I came that close. And so then I knew that I had to go to the gym, and I had done that in the past. And what we then do is, at the end of the year, as I said earlier, is we do this, that, and the other thing, and then we buy a membership to the gym, and 2 weeks later we have 100 reasons why we're too busy. I knew I had to hire a trainer, so I did that, and then started to look at diet. And so so that works for me, because then I have now a commitment to go, and I started at 15 years ago, and then gradually started working on it, and then in my case, then already starting when I was 68, and so after I recovered from the diverticulitis, it was 2009 that I started to do the new approach. So that was 15 years ago. And so after training for 6 or 7 years with a trainer, then and following my diet more carefully, becoming a vegan, 90/20 or 80/20 I used to call it. Now I'm probably 90/10. So that somebody came up to us and say, "Hey, John, have you ever thought about competing?" I said, "Me? Really?" And so then I said, "Why not?" And so we then started with my trainer at 68, 9, starting to compete. And then now I was 75. In 2017 and 18, I competed bodybuilding and physique, Northern BC, came in second in bodybuilding, third in physique, and then competed provincially, came in third in physique, second bodybuilding, which then qualified me for the nationals in the Arnold. And so
There.
and so then already in my 70s, and so and then obviously COVID came. So then for 2 years I slowed down, but I still stayed active, but not in the gym, obviously, because they couldn't go in there. And then I'm starting again now, training for 2025 again for the Arnolds, and this is who I am today, and getting ready for the bodybuilding and physique again, competing at the Arnolds and going through the steps towards it, and following diet. So the point that I'm making, first and foremost, is that so often I see people simply saying, "I'm too old," and that I'm 40, 50, or whatever the case may be, or something else that they have to change their pattern. There is no, although there are these days, I see advertising, you probably have an opinion about that, where there are certain pills that you can take and you lose weight. Well, highly unlikely that there is anything like that that will be effective. At the end of the day, the basics are simple. And everybody can follow them. There's no magic. Get lots of sunshine, I say, vitamin D, sleep 7.5 to 8.5 hours. I sleep at night. Then diet. Be careful with your diet. Understand it, and get exercise. And then do not abuse your body, because it is immensely forgiving, but for most cases, when you reach the final 10 years of your life, that's usually when people have hands full of toxic medicine, really, that fix one thing but create other problems elsewhere. And quality of life is not very good then. And from my perspective, that's why I wrote the book, Living Young, Dying Old, is that It's not about age, it's about quality of life. And the
Mm.
earlier you start doing it or start working towards it, the better, at least being careful with it. But even at nearly 70, or in my case, 68, 69, there is still time to make sure you start the process of all the steps that you can take. And there are no
Yeah.
quick fixes of any sort other than those.
Yeah, John, you're making so many great points, and I mean, I hear that all the time as well. It's like, oh, it's too late, or can I really build muscle in my from my 50s or 60s onwards? And I love that you are a testament for yes, you can. And more than that, I also just love how you were open to something new and pursuing goals, and I think that's a wonderful thing to have. And one other thing that you mentioned was the accountability of a coach, and especially in the beginning. And I mean, I always say, like, hypothetically, anybody can Google what should I eat. So technically, I don't have a job. I wouldn't need to be a nutrition coach. Technically, nutrition coaches should be or could be non-existent. However, just as you're saying, having the accountability of someone waiting there at the gym at 6 a.m. or whatever time you're training for you, that is the equivalent in terms of nutrition coaching when I once a week or more often talk to my clients. I'm like, hey, Nadine, what happened there with your last week? And tell me about it. And then she might say, oh, I wasn't prepared for the trip. Lisa, do you have any tips for me next time if I go out of town? Or why did you binge eat on Thursdays, Maria? Oh, well, on Thursdays, my boss yelled at me and blah, blah, blah. And then we can work through that. So it's kind of like a hybrid between having a therapist to talk your nutritional habits through with, and at the same time, the accountability of someone actually cares what I put in my mouth other than myself. Because even if we might have a spouse or family members that look at us and so on, they don't really care as much. I mean, of course, yes, they want you to be healthy, but in the end, it is your own responsibility what you are putting in your mouth. You even said your wife had been talking to you about what you quote unquote should be eating, but sometimes, unfortunately, things need to get worse before we take action. And so I do hope that people listening don't let it get to that point where
No.
either their physician or their health tells them no more, and then you might have to have a surgery or something worse. But that instead, if you are not taking the action that you should be, or not where you want to be at in terms of your health, then now is absolutely the best time to be starting. I actually created a post about this just a couple of days ago, where I was also saying, I mean, I'm 34 today, or not today. It's not my birthday, but I'm 34 at this point in my life, and I just had like a picture that came up as a reminder from a few years ago, and even when I was 19 or early 20s, I was not as quote unquote healthy as I am today. And most people think, oh, and when you're in your 20s, you're in your prime. But it does not have to be that way. I will admit that I used to have the limiting belief that as we age, it's normal to get fatter every year. It's normal to have more cellulite. It's normal to just do you have a posture that's worse and worse. I used to believe that because, of course, what we see around us, the norm, is what we start believing. And unfortunately, it is the norm for people to become overweight, to let go of their own health because they prioritize children or work or whatever. And I totally empathize for people that have a lot of family and work commitments. But the truth is, if you don't make your own health a priority, eventually your health will force you to pause for everything else in order to make it a priority. And you can only really show up as your best self at work and for your family if you're feeling good from the inside out. And that doesn't mean you need to commit as many hours into the gym as perhaps you, John, or I, but with 3-4 hours per week, I mean, that's a teeny tiny percentage, you can already maintain a lot of your health and your muscle mass throughout the years. So truly, I love what you said about everything, focusing on the basics, but most importantly, being consistent with what you do, because that's really what it comes down to. It doesn't help if we do these 6 or 8 week extreme challenges where we're torturing ourselves and then it's not sustainable and then you might get injured and then you're out for 3 months. That's really not what we're talking about. We're talking about having those things that you incorporate into your day. And also what I am certain about is that you have taken on a completely new identity probably now than what you were when you were 69. Like now you are saying you are a bodybuilder. You are the kind of person that goes to the gym on a very regular basis. You are the kind of person that eats well 80-90% of the time. And so I'm sure that has required a huge shift from how you used to think of yourself at 68 or 69. And you probably needed to adapt to that and grow into that new person as well.
Well, what it did for me, I nearly died. So that is a good one. So when the doc came up to me, he said, "Hey, John, you came this close." So that was a
Mhm.
wake-up call. Say that's about as good a wake-up call as you can get. The other one, obviously, I love my wife, and it's her birthday today. Actually, she's 70.
Oh,
She's
immediate.
75. Yeah, and so I called her
Oh,
early this morning. She is down in another city that we have in Victoria. We have a place in. So, but in any event, the so now I listen to her more, and it's now part of my life. And so
wonderful.
the other part that I should say is that there was a period in life where I knew I had to go to the gym and that would be good for me, but gyms then, 20, 30, 40 years ago, not as much now, I believe, were intimidating places to go because everybody looks perfect. And then they all know what you're doing. And then I walk in, I'm overweight, I don't look good, I don't feel good, I don't even know how to sit on the machine. And then they're all looking at me and they're saying, "What is he doing here?" That's not so, but that's the mental setting. Those are in, and it should not be that way. That everybody there, in most cases, goes there for a good reason, because in most cases, some socialize, but in most cases, they go there because of for their fitness and health, or to be fit. And especially if you get older, in terms of diet, is that, and as you get older, even more intimidating as you go to the gym necessarily. But what I do is I encourage it to others. That's why I speak about it. That's why I show the pictures. Everything is possible. Diet is the same that we get in. I grew up in Europe and I grew up here, and North America in particular. When I came here, the thing that I found amazing, they eat a lot of food. And much more so than I believe, and we did when I grew up. And again, it's a way of getting used to changing direction from going to the traditional foods that are not necessarily always healthy for you, or we don't prepare them with the thought of fitness and health, and have a program in a way, and that's a difficult switching in a family from one direction to the other, because as an individual, if you're part of a family, then pretty much everybody has to kind of go along with you, or at least see what you're doing. So it takes some determination to do it. But what we already know is that as you get to the last decade of your life, that in most cases is where the challenges start to occur, and that all the things that you have done before will come back to you, and the body wants to be fit and wants to be stay healthy, at needs. It only can accept so much abuse And then that period that should be the most rewarding part and can be is the most important part. It's important that you meaning in a general sense, respectfully, that it's worth it to be in that shape. And I get mentioned to me all the time that I'm obviously in good shape. It's a lifestyle that I love it. Going to the gym, I love going to the gym. It is no more challenge for me to health, eat healthy. And in fact, when I go to the grocery stores, I do usually all the shopping for both my wife, myself. And if I go to the grocery store, I usually walk to the outside of the store because on the inside is all the prepared, and I don't know what is in it. That in the food that is in the cans, what they put in it. So, and I'm very, very conscientious of that.
I like that. And yeah, absolutely. It can be so intimidating stepping into the gym at first. I think that's another great reason to have a trainer in the beginning, or at least to follow a training program, because that way someone is going to show you this is how you use the machine the best. Or even if someone's listening to this and they might not be able to afford a personal trainer, going to a group class might not necessarily initially be the best thing, or might not always be the best thing, but it can take that fear away and build some confidence in the sense of how to use certain things and how to just in general get started. And you're so right, even when it comes to food, I totally agree that it takes some self-confidence to perhaps say to your mom or your grandma or whoever you're eating with, actually, sorry, I'm not going to have that much pasta today. I would like a little bit more of the salad. Can you leave the sauce of the chicken because it's super greasy or so? And I will say that is another thing where we can really just build the confidence, where we need to practice saying no or speaking up. Or even if you go to a restaurant, I mean, nowadays I think they are a lot more accommodating than they used to be in the past, but you can say, hey, could you perhaps not put the cheese on there? I would like the sauce separate. I think in Europe we're a little bit behind when it comes to accommodating for things like that. They're a little bit more, set in their ways. But especially in North America, it is pretty easy to speak up and say how you want your meals prepared. I do realize, though, that initially that might be a little bit uncomfortable if you go out with your friends, if you go out with your family members, and then they suddenly start looking, Lisa, why did you ask for the sauce on the side? Why did you ask for no cheese? And I think it can be really liberating, scary at first, but liberating in the end, to then also say, hey guys, I'm actually wanting to take a little bit better care of my health. That's Can you please not bring the pizza home, or can you please just be respectful and not try to push me to having that third beer or fourth beer or so. I'm just trying to look a bit more after my health. And I think we are so afraid of feeling left out, or of that peer pressure that might sometimes come. But when people speak up, more often than not, from my experience working with clients, they actually get really positive resonance. And some other people might actually say, okay, that's cool. Someone might say, oh, come on, don't be so lame, or don't be. But if they say that, that's more stemming from their own insecurity or something that they're not happy with within them. So I do want people to realize that saying no or speaking up about their own choices is also something that we need to practice. And the last thing that you mentioned there, in terms of the sticking with the parameters of the supermarket, that's a really great tip. I really like that. I have heard that several times, because that way you're kind of forgoing the aisles with the chips, with the sodas, and so on. And so it's an easy way to, number one, save calories, number two, just to have that higher food quality, both of which are important components: the amount of food, the quantity of food that we're eating, but of course also the quality. So you're giving some great tips. As I said, if you're still looking for a job, I would hire you any day. John, you can be a great nutrition coach.
Yeah, don't challenge me, because I may come to Bolivia. No, I'm just kidding. I would like to go there, actually. So the other part, Lisa, is that that I believe that people, at least here in the area in North America, and I travel around quite a bit, is that people are becoming more accepted to, being more conscientious about diet. And I agree with you that for the restaurants that we have here, those questions are not unique to them, and they respond to it usually. Now, the other part that I find is that that podcasting has been, I love podcasting, so we got involved about 5 6 years ago, first blogging and then on a local basis, and then obviously COVID came, and then after COVID we started to work with Podmatch, doing it virtual, and now we're podcasting around the world, like in your case. For one, uh, we go all over the globe on all kinds of different topics. And especially discussions that you and me have now, we know already that, and that's not being presumptuous, but we know already that we will have hundreds of thousands of people watching our conversation. There is no question about that around the world. And they will learn from that or pick up from that ideas that they say, I like this, I like that, and create encouragement. And I believe that helps bringing us forward. And that's another reason that I show, like my book at 84, is even, and your comment was right. I only started in my late 60s. You wouldn't want to wait that long necessarily, but I was lucky in a way that I did it in such a way that it helped me. I could afford to do it. The hiring the trainers, and but getting the guidance is extremely important, both in terms of diet, but also in terms of physical fitness. To make sure once you go into the gym that you don't hurt yourself, that you have a program. But if you can afford the trainer, great. Otherwise, you get guidance. There is lots of guidance available that is doable. But once you get to the threshold of you seeing the benefits, you look back and saying, "Wow, I'm so happy that I've done this." So the other thing, I asking you some questions here. The one that you have is, and I believe I know the answer already too, but one of the ones that you said, that once people lose weight, then they gain it back again. Is that not following the discipline, or mainly, or what is it?
I mean, it's multifaceted, but yeah, it's so common, and I'm sure many people listening to this have yo-yoed back, so often gained the weight back, or sometimes even more. And in my opinion, and from my experience, from what I've seen clients come to me with, is that they don't have a plan for after the plan. So people know they want to lose weight, but that's often as far as it goes. So they think of, what's my goal weight? Okay, once they get there, then what? They don't think about some of the things that we already spoke about, like what's sustainable. They just think, I want to get there. But the other thing is that, of course, in order to lose weight, we need to be in a calorie deficit. So eating less calories than what we're burning, right? So most people get that. They either just eat a little bit less, or they cut something out, like a specific food group. Maybe they go low carb or whatever. So they just reduce their calorie intake. But then at the end of the diet, the important thing is to keep in mind is that we're, number one, going to have higher hunger signals. Your body wants you to gain the weight back because it just wants you to be safe. And of course, for your body, initially, the thought is, if you have a little bit of extra cushion, if you have more body fat, that is safety. You're going to survive for longer in case there is a hunger period. So at the end of the dieting phase, your body is going to send you increased hunger signals. And actually, physiologically as well, it's just more prone to storing whatever you're eating in terms of body fat. So that's why you're often overshooting after a diet and actually gaining more weight back, because that's what your body wants you to do. However, if we strategically go about it, we will slowly increase your calories back up. That is what's called reverse dieting. And in terms of the nutrition space, that's part of the nutritional periodization. So if someone comes to me and says, I want to lose weight, we're going to plan exactly, okay, how many weeks roughly should it take us to get to that person's goal weight? But then at the end of it, I don't just say, okay, see you later, Joanna, good luck with everything. We will say, okay, now we're going to spend 6-8 weeks reverse dieting, but so slowly but steadily increasing your calories again to the point where you're again eating the same as what your body is burning. So we don't just want to trust our hunger signals after the diet, because as I mentioned, they're not going to be reliable. A lot of people, when they get to their goal weight, what I often hear is, I just want to go back to intuitive eating. Well, unfortunately, intuitive eating brought you to where you were before, because in our modern day, with stress and with highly palatable foods, you're just going to be inclined to eat way too much. So the key, in my opinion, and from my experience, to not fall into the yo-yo dieting trap is to have a plan for after your diet. So really being very cautious and mindful of bringing those calories up slowly. The other mistake, though, that people sometimes make is they go on a diet and then they're so afraid of gaining the weight back that they stay at a really low calorie level. And of course, long term, that's not healthy either, because your metabolism is going to adapt, your hormones are going to be dysregulated. I'm sure you, after many shows, you know what it's like when you are at the end of a dieting phase and your body is just not feeling that great. Maybe your testosterone or whatever hormones have taken a little bit of a hit. So it's so important to bring your calories back up. Again, having a plan for after you reach your goal weight is the best way to prevent yo-yoing back and to ensure long-term health when it comes to your hormones, your metabolism, and so on.
Lisa, it was amazing. How do people get a hold of you?
Well, thank you so much for having me, John. Honestly, it's been a pleasure. I am most active on Instagram. My handle there is Nutrition Coaching and Life, as is the name of the company. And so you will also find the website, Nutrition Coaching and Life. I'm on LinkedIn, same name. Yeah, true pleasure to speak with you. And thank you so much to everyone who's listening.
And for all the people listening to us, both Lisa and me, subscribe to our podcast because it encourages us. Share it and like it and make comments on it. Lisa, let's make sure we stay in touch. And again, thank you for being part of my show.
My pleasure.
Take care. Bye-bye.